Ever notice how some people make life feel lighter while others seem to weigh it down? Why does it feel like some connections give us life while others drain it? And is there a way to live with everyone, no matter what they bring? People are complicated. We each come with our own quirks, histories, and expectations. Some make us feel seen and appreciated, while others test every ounce of patience we've got. So, here we are, trying to live with all of it, wondering if there's a way to keep our balance through it all. Living with people, really living with them, it's not about forcing yourself to like everyone. It's about learning to stand your ground, staying steady no matter who's around. Not everyone's going to fit neatly into your life, and that's fine. But if you can stay grounded, keep a calm mind, a steady heart, then you can live alongside anyone, good or bad, without losing your peace. The way to do that isn't a mystery, and it doesn't mean being nice all the time. It's about learning a few simple practices, a few quiet disciplines that can change how you see, respond to, and live with the people around you. First off, accept people as they are. One of the toughest parts of dealing with people is our expectations. We tend to see people as we wish they were, not as they really are. And when they don't meet that ideal, it throws us off. Instead, try accepting them without any need to change them. Don't try to fix their stubbornness, don't make it your mission to soften their rough edges. Just let them be. When you stop fighting against who they are, you'll find it's much easier to stay at peace with them. Next, don't take things personally. Not everything people do or say is about you, even if it feels that way. A harsh word, a cold response, sometimes people are just wrestling with their own issues. Often we make the mistake of thinking every interaction reflects something about us. But in reality, most people are too wrapped up in their own lives to direct all their behavior toward you personally. So when someone's actions seem off, give it a pause. Choose not to assume or make it about you. Let it go, give them grace, and don't let it disturb your peace. Now, let's talk about boundaries. It's easy to feel guilty for setting them, especially with those close to us. But boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about protecting your energy. It's about making sure you have room to breathe, to be fully present. When you set boundaries, you're not saying, "I don't want you around," you're saying, "Here's what I need to stay healthy and grounded," and the people who respect you will respect those boundaries too. Then there's patience, a virtue we all talk about but rarely live out. Patience is the difference between reacting and responding. When someone's testing you, pushing all the wrong buttons, it's easy to fire back. But if you can hold off, give it a moment, you'll find most things don't even need a reaction. Patience gives you space to choose how to respond instead of letting emotions take over. So the next time someone's got you on edge, remember, patience keeps you in control. The truth is, living peacefully with people doesn't mean changing them, it means strengthening yourself. When you stop fighting against who they are and focus on keeping your own calm, you'll find that living with all kinds of people becomes a whole lot easier. Now, let's talk about keeping your calm with all the noise around you. How often do we let other people's energy throw us off balance? How many times have you been in a good mood until someone's bad day spills over onto you? The real question is, can we learn to keep our peace no matter what's happening around us? When you're dealing with all kinds of people, it's crucial to hold on to your inner calm. Your peace is not something to let go of lightly, even when the world around you feels like it's pulling you in every direction. So here are a few ways to start building that solid ground inside, a place that stays steady no matter who you're dealing with. First, train your focus. It's easy to get distracted by other people's moods, their opinions, and their reactions. If you can train yourself to focus on what matters, on what you actually care about, the noise around you becomes less important. Take a moment to ask yourself, does this really affect me most of the time? The answer is no. Keep your mind on what you're doing, on your own goals, and let the rest just be background noise. Second, practice restraint. Not everything deserves a response, especially things that drain your energy. People will try to pull you into arguments, discussions, even gossip. But ask yourself, is this worth my energy? If not, let it slide. Restraint isn't about suppressing yourself, it's about choosing what's worth responding to and what you can just let pass by. Next, find strength in solitude. Spending time with yourself, learning to enjoy your own company, gives you an inner stability that's harder to shake. It's not about avoiding people, it's about building a space inside where you don't need others to feel calm or whole. Try setting aside a little time every day, even just a few minutes, to be alone with your thoughts. You'll find that over time, you're less affected by the ups and downs of those around you. Then, remember to stay grounded in reality. It's easy to get swept up in the drama, to let people's problems become your problems. But reality is usually much simpler. The next time you feel pulled into someone else's storm, take a deep breath, step back and ask yourself, what's really happening here most of the time? Things aren't as urgent as they seem. By staying grounded, you can see things clearly without getting wrapped up in them. Finally, cultivate a sense of gratitude. When you focus on the good in your life, it becomes harder for the negative energy of others to get to you. Gratitude is a quiet strength, something that builds up inside and makes you resilient. Start small every day. Find one thing to be thankful for. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's a good conversation, a small moment of peace, or just a cup of coffee. These small things remind you that no matter what's happening around you, there's always something good to hold on to. If you want to keep your peace, focus on building it from the inside out. Life will always be noisy, people will always have their issues, but you don't have to carry that weight. When you stay focused, grounded, and grateful, you create a peace that no one can take from you. Now let's see if it's that easy to live with good people. Ever notice how even the best people in our lives can sometimes pull us away from our own path? How do we stay close without losing ourselves? All right, let's dive into this, living with good people. Sounds easy, right? But the truth is, it's not always a walk in the park. Even when people have the best intentions, if we're not careful, we can get lost in their world. So here's 5 ways on how to stay close to those good folks while keeping your feet planted firmly in your own life. Number 1. Don't idolize anyone. Here's the deal, respecting someone is one thing, putting them on a pedestal, that's a whole different game. It's easy to do, these people are good, they seem like they've got it together. But when you start thinking they're perfect, that's when you start losing sight of yourself. No one is flawless, and if you're always looking up to them, you might lose track of your own journey. So admire them, sure, but never forget you're walking your own path. Number 2. Stand by your values, even around people you respect. We've all been there, around people we look up to, and we find ourselves tweaking our opinions, adjusting our values to fit in. But here's the thing, don't do it. Not even for the best people. They'll respect you more when you stand firm in what you believe. You don't have to become a reflection of them to be in their circle. You've got your own worth, your own perspective. Stick to it. Number 3. Learn without copying. It's tempting, right? You see someone doing something well and think, maybe that's the trick, and it could be. But be careful not to get caught up in copying their entire lifestyle. Learn from them, sure, but don't forget who you are in the process. Take what fits, adapt it to your life, and make it your own. The best way to grow is by doing it your way, not by following someone else's blueprint. Number 4. Keep some distance for yourself. Now, this one might sound a bit odd, but hear me out. Even when you're around great people, it's important to have some space. Not in a cold, distant way, but in a way that keeps you centered. Maybe they're always on the go, or their lives are filled with a certain rhythm. That's fine for them, but it doesn't mean you have to keep up. Give yourself the room to breathe, to step back and live at your own pace. It's in those quiet moments, away from the crowd, that you'll reconnect with who you really are. Number 5. Show appreciation, but don't depend on their approval. One last point, make sure to show appreciation to the good people around you. Let them know you value them, that they matter. But here's the key, don't make their approval the thing that drives you. If you rely on their praise or validation too much, you'll start living for them instead of for yourself. Show gratitude, but remember, your life, your choices, your direction, that's yours to own. Living with good people isn't about following their lead, it's about finding a way to respect them, learn from them, but never lose sight of who you are. Be in their circle, but keep your center. Don't let anyone's greatness make you feel less than your own. Now let's talk about living with people who don't bring the best out in you. The bad people. We've all been there, right? You've got that one person in your life who constantly drags you down. Maybe they make everything harder or just seem to always bring negativity. But here's the real challenge. How do you live with these kinds of people and not lose yourself in the process? Living with difficult people, or just dealing with people who bring bad energy, is one of the most challenging things in life. They can make your day harder, drain your patience, and even throw you off course if you're not careful. But here's the thing. You can control how you react, even if you can't always control who you interact with. In fact, this is where you'll discover whether you've truly mastered the art of staying grounded. Here's 9 ways on how to deal with those difficult people, step by step, without losing your cool. Number 1. Set your boundaries early. One of the biggest mistakes you can make when dealing with difficult people is allowing them to overstep boundaries. They'll test your limits, they'll push your buttons, and they'll see how much they can get away with. But if you don't set clear boundaries, you're going to find yourself constantly frustrated and exhausted. Now, this isn't about being rude or cold, it's about protecting your peace. If someone talks to you in a way that isn't respectful, let them know. If they invade your space, speak up. Establish boundaries early and consistently, because once they know they can cross the line, it's much harder to take it back. Number 2. Don't take it personally. One thing about bad people, they often make their behavior all about them, not you. It's easy to get swept up and think, what did I do wrong? Why are they acting like this toward me? But the reality is, it's not about you. It's about their issues, their frustrations, or their lack of maturity. When you learn to separate their behavior from your worth, it becomes much easier to not internalize their negativity. So, the next time you face criticism, manipulation, or just plain rudeness, ask yourself, is this really about me, or is this something they're dealing with? Remind yourself that their behavior doesn't define you, it defines them. Number 3. Keep your expectations low. Let's face it, we've all been disappointed by people at one point or another, especially when it comes to those who can't seem to stop making life difficult. But here's the truth. If you expect people who are always negative or difficult to suddenly become warm and thoughtful, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Instead, try to keep your expectations low. Accept them for who they are, flaws and all. It's easier to navigate a relationship when you aren't constantly waiting for them to act differently. By managing your expectations, you free yourself from constant frustration. Number 4. Learn the art of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean being cold or uncaring. It means learning how to not get emotionally involved in every little drama that comes your way. Difficult people often thrive on creating chaos, manipulating emotions, or triggering responses. If you want to deal with them effectively, learn to detach your emotions from their behavior. This takes practice, but it's essential. When someone is rude, disrespectful, or just plain obnoxious, instead of immediately reacting, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this something I need to engage with? Is it worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. By detaching yourself emotionally, you maintain control of your peace. Number 5. Don't engage in their drama. People who bring negativity often want to drag you into their chaos. They may gossip, argue, or even push you into situations that are uncomfortable. The best response? Don't engage. When someone tries to pull you into drama, you've got 2 choices. You can join in and let it mess with your mind and energy, or you can choose not to respond. Let their drama be theirs, not yours. By not engaging, you protect your own peace and show that you're not willing to lower yourself to their level. Number 6. Understand that you can't change them. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you just say the right thing or act in the right way, you can change someone's behavior. But the reality is, you can't change anyone who doesn't want to change. Trying to force someone to be different or fix them will only lead to frustration and disappointment. Instead of focusing on changing them, focus on what you can control: your own actions, your own responses, and your own mindset. The key is accepting people for who they are, not who you want them to be. Number 7. Find your strength in silence. When you're dealing with someone who thrives on conflict or manipulation, silence can be one of your most powerful tools. Sometimes the best thing you can do is not say anything at all. By staying silent, you deprive them of the reaction they crave and show that you won't play into their drama. This doesn't mean avoiding all communication, but in tense situations, silence can give you the space you need to stay calm and make a thoughtful decision about how to respond. Number 8. Protect your inner peace. Above all, your inner peace is your most valuable asset. People who are difficult to deal with will try to chip away at it, but key to living with them is remembering that your peace is non-negotiable. Keep it safe. Protect it by not giving them power over your emotions or your day. When you set up your boundaries, detach emotionally, and choose not to engage, you're actively protecting your inner peace. And no one, no matter how difficult they are, should be allowed to take that away from you. Number 9. Lead by example. Even when you're surrounded by negativity, you can still lead by example. Show people that it's possible to be kind, calm, and centered in the face of conflict. You don't have to stoop to their level. By simply maintaining your composure and practicing the principles that protect your peace, you can influence others to do the same. Living with difficult people doesn't mean tolerating abuse or letting them walk all over you. It means learning to deal with them in a way that doesn't compromise your own peace, your own sense of self. It's about setting boundaries, protecting your energy, and knowing when to walk away. When you understand this, you'll stop letting other people's bad behavior control your life. Can forgiveness and boundaries really help you handle good and bad people? Here's something we all wrestle with, even if we don't say it out loud. How do you forgive someone for what they've done to you and still keep your boundaries in place? It's one of the trickiest balances to get right, especially if we're talking about living with both good and bad people. But it's a balance that can make all the difference in how you navigate those relationships. Forgiveness helps us let go of resentment and move forward. But boundaries? They're what protect us from letting the same patterns repeat. So let's dive into this balance, why both forgiveness and boundaries are necessary, and how they let us live with all kinds of people without losing ourselves in the process. Think about this for a second. Forgiveness and boundaries, they aren't opposites, they're allies. People talk a lot about how freeing it is to forgive, to release anger and resentment, and they're right. But if you forgive without having clear boundaries, you might find yourself right back in the same place, facing the same issues with the same people. Forgiveness frees your heart, but boundaries protect your peace. It's easy to hear advice about forgiving others, letting things go, and keeping the peace. And there's wisdom there, no doubt. But let's get real. If someone's behavior has repeatedly crossed the line, then forgiving them doesn't mean you ignore it or pretend it didn't happen. Forgiveness and boundaries work together. You let go of the anger, but you also draw a line to make sure you're not stepping back into the same mess. There's an old saying, how much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the things which make us angry, by Marcus Aurelius. It's a reminder that anger can damage us far beyond the original offense. So yes, holding on to resentment is like holding on to a burning coal. But letting go doesn't mean you ignore what happened, especially when it comes to people who have tested you before. True balance comes when you forgive someone to release yourself from the burden of anger. But set boundaries so you're not allowing the same harm to repeat. Imagine this. Think of someone in your life who's let you down, maybe more than once. It could be a friend who talks over you, brushing aside what you say, or a family member who's used words to cut you down. You can choose to forgive them, to let go of the weight of that resentment. But without a boundary, without a clear line in the sand, what happens? They'll likely come back with the same behavior. And now the peace you gained from forgiving them gets swept away because you didn't protect it. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about honoring your own peace, about forgiving to release yourself but setting boundaries to make sure you stay free. Here's what real strength looks like. Forgiveness is freedom from anger, but it doesn't mean sacrificing your self-respect. You let go of resentment, sure, but you also decide where you draw the line to keep that freedom intact. Forgiveness and boundaries aren't in conflict. They're partners in how you live with others, no matter who they are. This is why boundaries are so essential. They're not walls meant to isolate you, they're lines that make sure you're still standing strong in your peace, no matter who steps into your life. You forgive because it's freeing, but you keep boundaries to make sure that freedom isn't short-lived. When silence speaks louder than words, handling good and bad people through restraint. Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. When it comes to living with both good and bad people, knowing when to be silent can become your strongest tool. Silence shows control and a deeper kind of awareness, a restraint that helps you avoid unnecessary conflict and builds respect in those around you. And here's the truth: silence can reveal more about your strength and character than any words could. With the good people in your life, silence creates a kind of listening space that's rare. Instead of trying to jump in with opinions or stories of your own, holding back lets you absorb and understand them better. In silence, you create a bond that says, "I'm here to listen, not to judge." This kind of silence is rooted in respect, and it fosters a connection that can run deeper than if you were constantly inserting your own voice. With the challenging, negative people, though, silence takes on a different tone. It's a shield. It becomes a way of controlling the interaction without directly engaging. If someone is throwing hurtful words your way, sometimes all they're looking for is a reaction. Your silence denies them that. Choosing not to react shows you won't be pulled into their negativity. Silence in the face of someone's anger or criticism doesn't mean you're agreeing with them. It means their words don't control you. And that's powerful. This doesn't mean silence is about avoidance or shutting down. Silence is intentional. It's about choosing when to respond and when to let things pass. There's strength in that choice. Zeno, an ancient philosopher, captured it well when he said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." Why? Because words once spoken can't be taken back. An unguarded word can do more harm than a stumble. Silence, however, allows you to step back, observe, and respond in your own time. This silence becomes especially useful when you're facing negativity from others. Suppose a colleague, friend, or family member is trying to provoke you. Instead of taking the bait, silence lets you stay in control of yourself and the situation. In fact, silence in these moments speaks louder than any comeback. It's as if you're saying, "Your actions don't define my response." By choosing not to engage, you're setting the tone, refusing to let their negativity take over your peace of mind. But silence isn't just a tool for managing conflicts, it's also a space for reflection. Good or bad, interactions often reveal something about yourself. The moment you pause instead of reacting, you're giving yourself time to understand your own reactions and whether the situation truly requires a response. With positive people, this pause can reveal shared values or aspirations that deepen your bond. With negative people, it can highlight patterns or triggers that you can start to recognize and, in time, avoid. Silence is an intentional choice, a response that lets you hold on to your own peace, regardless of the situation. With good people, it builds bonds by creating space for listening and understanding. With challenging people, silence is a shield, a refusal to let negativity break your calm. So, here's my task for you today. In your next conversation, make a conscious effort to pause before you respond. Whether the person is supportive or challenging, notice what that moment of silence brings to the interaction. Does it create a deeper connection or protect your peace? Try it and see the difference it makes. Seeing ourselves in others. How good and bad people reflect who we are. Every person we meet, good or bad, holds a mirror up to us, showing us a bit more of who we are. And when we really think about it, our reactions to people can be some of the most honest feedback we get. This section is about facing that mirror and understanding what it's showing us about ourselves. Each time we feel inspired by someone's kindness, irritated by their arrogance, or impacted by their behavior in any way, we're given a clue about what we value, what we fear, and where we might need to grow. Our reactions are like signals, pointing to parts of ourselves that sometimes we can't see otherwise. Maybe a friend's generosity makes us uncomfortable, which might hint that we feel guilty about our own limits with giving. Or perhaps someone's bad habits make us judgmental, which can reveal our own insecurities about discipline. As Marcus Aurelius put it, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." If our relationships are rocky, or if we find ourselves in constant conflict, it's often because there's inner work to be done. That doesn't mean we're to blame for every issue, rather, it's a call to turn inward and assess what these experiences are teaching us. In fact, the flaws we find in others often point back to parts of ourselves that we may be ignoring or struggling with. Think of that coworker whose laziness drives you up the wall. Is it possible that your irritation is also a reminder of your own struggle to maintain productivity? Or that friend's chronic lateness, it may be reminding you of your need for control and structure, which might be a strength but also a source of stress if unchecked. Even the people we admire reveal something to us. Their strength or resilience can remind us of qualities we have but aren't fully using, like untapped potential. When someone shows us a quality that moves us, it's usually because it's a part of ourselves that's waiting to come to the surface. A person's kindness might inspire us because deep down, we want to be that kind of person too. Recognizing this brings clarity about who we want to become. Seeing others as mirrors doesn't just help us grow individually, it also changes how we see people as a whole. When we realize that our reactions to others are more about us than them, judgment starts to dissolve. We stop labeling people strictly as good or bad and begin to see everyone as complex, just like ourselves. This helps us develop compassion and patience, even for those who may test us. And here's another task you can out on your bucket list. Think of a recent interaction that stuck with you, someone whose behavior affected you emotionally. Take a moment to reflect on what it was that sparked that response. Ask yourself what it might reveal about you. Sometimes, these moments offer surprising insights and are opportunities to better understand our own character. The takeaway here is simple. Our interactions aren't just about managing others, they're about learning who we are. Relationships are mirrors, each one reflecting back pieces of ourselves that we can use to grow, to become better, and to understand our own nature. Releasing resentment and embracing composure. How equanimity keeps us unshaken by good and bad people. When we deal with people who test our limits, it's easy to let resentment build up. Whether they're blatantly disrespectful or simply rub us the wrong way, the negative energy lingers if we let it. This section is about the power of equanimity, staying calm and steady, refusing to let others' actions take control of our inner peace. Resentment is like a slow poison. It's often aimed at those who, in our eyes, have wronged us or shown behavior we can't stand. But here's the reality: resentment has a way of gripping us far more tightly than it impacts anyone else. That resentment, kept alive, keeps us tethered to the actions of others. To paraphrase Marcus Aurelius, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Instead of sinking to the level of those who wrong us, the true strength lies in rising above, in being calm and collected, even when provoked. Equanimity isn't about ignoring reality or brushing things under the rug. It's about choosing how much power we're going to let others have over our emotional state. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic, insults you, or talks down to you. If every small act of rudeness stirs up anger, we're living our lives reacting to others instead of controlling our own course. By cultivating equanimity, we start taking our power back. Living with both good and bad people means accepting that there will be unfairness, misunderstandings, and conflicts. But how much time and energy are you willing to spend nursing grudges or imagining ways to get even? Every moment we spend on resentment is a moment we're not spending on growth, on joy, on anything that actually adds value to our lives. Think of a candle in the wind. If it flares up every time there's a gust, it won't last long. Equanimity is like protecting that flame, letting it shine steadily, unaffected by the breezes and storms around it. We can't control the actions of others, but we can control whether or not we allow those actions to shake us. Now, here's what you are going to do over the coming days. Identify one resentment you've been carrying, big or small. It could be a person, a past wrong, or even a repeated irritation. Now, consciously choose to release it, just for today. Recognize how holding on to it drains you, and in that awareness, practice letting it go, even if just for a few hours. Notice the lightness that comes with the decision. Conquering resentment isn't about letting others off the hook, it's about freeing ourselves from the weight of anger. Equanimity is what keeps us steady, allowing us to face both the good and the bad without losing our center. Now here's how we conclude this. Living with balance, choosing freedom over control. Living with both the good and the bad in this world isn't about forcing others to change or getting everyone to act the way we'd like. Instead, it's about mastering ourselves, holding steady in a world full of people and personalities we can't control. We don't live in isolation, and we never will. But we do live with a choice, the choice to rise above, to respond rather than react, and to set our own terms on how we allow others to affect us. Forgiveness without losing self-respect, boundaries without hostility, silence when words would betray our inner peace. These aren't just strategies. They're the foundation of an unbreakable mindset. They empower us to meet every person and every challenge with a sense of calm resilience. When we release the need to control others, we find our freedom. When we focus on self-respect, on cultivating patience, and on recognizing that others are mirrors reflecting our own inner strengths and weaknesses, we stop being tossed around by every wave. We become steady, anchored, and undisturbed. So, here's the task for this final takeaway. Take a deep look at the relationships around you, the good, the bad, and the challenging. Ask yourself, how am I allowing these people to shape my reactions and influence my peace? Then make the choice, moment by moment, to reclaim your inner freedom and live with the balance you deserve. This is the path to peace in any crowd, the art of living untouched by the chaos of others. And there it is, the art of living with anyone, good or bad, while keeping your peace intact. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you had an experience where you had to balance forgiveness with setting boundaries, or maybe a time where choosing silence spoke louder than any words? Drop your story in the comments, and let's see how others have handled similar moments. And if you found value in this, remember to hit that subscribe button and help us grow this community of like-minded Stoics. Thanks for watching.